Hi there, I'm Woolly Wormhead and welcome to my channel. In today's tutorial, I would like to talk to you about using slit stitches in short row colourwork. Slit stitches in short row colourwork have several purposes. They're probably kind of like not something that you expect to find in short row colourwork because short row colourwork is all short rows, right? Short rows and garter stitch primarily. But the slip stitches actually kind of like make really, really effective use of the patterns, and placing them deliberately in certain places helps us achieve certain effects. The most common effect, which you will have found if you've purchased my book or borrowed it from your library, um, there's several motifs in here that have a patterning that appears broken but actually isn't. And that's what I wanted to achieve when I started using slip stitches. I wanted to have that effect of short row colourwork motifs that weren't actually joined, that appeared pieced, but were joined, but without any of the hassle or the finishing or any of the sewing up or any of those things. It made it kind of like quite a clever little twist that allowed for different patterns to appear without them all being continuously joined by a single line of garter stitch in the same colour. I've got some examples here to show you that I'll put under the overhead when I switch over. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you those examples, and then I'll show you how to work the slip stitches both from the right side and the wrong side when working flat and when working in the round. I think the full purpose of, or the full things that you can achieve with slip stitches in short row collar work is probably a video in and of itself, because they can be used for more than making the motifs appear broken or pieced. There are other ways that you can use them, but I think that's a video that's probably going to be another thing, because there's actually quite a lot there to explain. So before I go off on a tangent, let me switch to the overhead. Let's have a look at some of these examples that use slip stitches, and then let's have a look at how we can actually do them. Okay, this first swatch that I have here is one example of where slip stitches have been used to make the short row sections appear kind of pieced and joined, makes them look separate rather than having a continuous line that joins them all together. You've actually got them sort of standalone, floating in the space, but there's no extra sewing involved in here. Let me bring this up closer. You see that there's actually that ridge of garter stitch goes up to there and it joins that one there, and then we can only achieve that with slip stitches, which means on the back we have these small floats. They're only short, they don't interfere with anything. They create a really, really nice effect. This is a repeatable motif from the book. Now this is another one. This time the short rows have been used to kind of encase around and be part of the stripe. So the pods are kind of like encased in these lines. Again, it has a pieced feel. It reduces the finishing, no sewing, just few floats there on the back. And then this is one of the that way up. Actually, it can be that way. It's up to you, actually, which way around you use it. It's actually knit, get right? It's actually knit this way around. And there are slip stitches down here at the bottom, both in the grey and in the orange, to help create this enclosed effect here. Now, this is slightly different to the way that they've been used in the repeatables, because this isn't creating a kind of pieced look feel, but it's actually allowing things to appear joined up in a way that they wouldn't do if we were actually working continuous lines here. So we can see on the back there's some short floats there in the grey, and then slightly longer ones for the orange, because the grey is slipped in different places to where the orange is here. So that's just a couple of the ways that they can be used. I'm now going to switch over and get my samples out and show you how to do this. Okay, so this first demo is going to be showing you how to do slip stitches in short row stripes on a motif that's worked flat. Now we can see here there's clusters of short rows here and there's clusters of short rows here. I mean, this is one good example of where the kind of, I've talked about in the positive and negative space of short row color work, how the background makes as much of the pattern as the foreground. And the variegated yarn plays very nicely with it. You can see there's lots of movement going on there. And these clusters of short rows push and pull at these stripes that are worked along here to create it, that wavy line. Now the stripes are broken by slip stitches. And so then I'm about to work the next section of stripes. So it's going to be this first row work down here. So I shall do it up here. Now, I've got a small border on here, so I work the border in the background color, yarn A. And I've got stitch markers to indicate where my border is so that I kind of make sure I'm working the right number of stitches. Now, this pattern starts off with slipping 5. So we slip them purlwise to maintain orientation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the yarn remains at the back, same as you would in any other situation when you are slipping stitches. Now, when you put the float across, don't pull it too tight. Stretch the stitches out a little bit to make sure that it doesn't end up sort of kind of like tugging into your fabric. Now, I've got a K10 on this one. And then it'll be another slip 5. So let me just K my 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What was that? Go. So, and now with the yarn at the back, we 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stretch the knitting out a little bit before you carry your float up so the float isn't too tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's how you do it really. You want to make sure that you stretch your knitting out because there is a slightly longer float. I do have a tutorial for catching afterthought floats, which you could use if you want to. It's up to you. I don't mind them too much. I wouldn't normally float longer than that. I might say catch them. Again, that is a personal preference, but you want to just make sure that they're not too tight and always carry the float on the wrong side of the work. So I'm going to continue this row, do one more repeat down here, and then I'm going to show you how to slip the stitches on the return row to make sure that the yarn is on the right side and the floats are on the right side. Okay, I'm almost at a point now where I need to slip the stitches on the wrong side row. We need to make sure that the stitches are slipped in the return row to maintain the pattern. So we're going to knit those 2 stitches there. And because we are slipping the stitches with the yarn held on the wrong side, we have to bring the yarn forward before we slip them. And we slip them purlwise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maintain best you can the same tension on that float before starting the next section. Okay, we don't have to worry about counting this time because the stitches are already in place. We just got to kind of knit across to the next point when we know it's going to need to be slipped. So we've got another slip section here. So we bring the yarn forward, right, which means bringing it to the wrong side of the work because that's where we're working here. That means that our float is always carried on the back. And then take the yarn back round to the other side, and then we knit towards the end of that section until we meet the next area that we have to float. And bring the yarn to the wrong side of the work. I mean, yeah, it's yarn forward because we're working on the wrong side of the work, but bring the yarn to the wrong side of the work. Float those stitches. And if you have a situation like I have here, where we need to change back to the yarn and turn it over to the other side of the work to continue knitting, I tend to kind of wrap them around just so that it catches it there. So this is what we had. We came up here. This is yarn A, the background. This would be the end of the float, but I'm going to catch it before I take my yarn back to the other side so that I can keep it there and anchor it Saves me having to catch it in other ways. And then let's just get to the end of that row and we'll have a look at see what that first stripe of this section looks like. And there we have our floated little stripes here broken up by slip stitches. You can see the floats on the back. These stitches all have been worked an extra 2 rows compared to these ones, but this pattern balances them all out. All right. So don't worry about that. Slip stitches do get balanced out within the short row colourwork pattern. They're designed deliberately like that. And that's how they look. The floats are not too tight. You can see the floats down here still have plenty of give and stretch in them, which is what you want. So that's how you do it in a knitted flat section of short row colourwork. I'm now going to bring in a sample and show you how to do it in the round. Okay, so this this sample that I have here, swatch sample, something, is actually got the same pattern as the flat one that I used in the previous demo. It's a repeatable motif, which means they can be worked in the round or worked flat. They get repeated across horizontally as well as vertically. They're the only motifs that can be repeated across in the round in the book. So this is the in the round version. Now, on the right side of our work, the slipping of the stitches is exactly the same. The yarn's going to be at the back already. So we just slip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however many stitches your pattern tells you to slip. You slip them yarn-wise, keep a nice length float, stretch this out so it doesn't get too tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's that float that we've just put in there. And we work 10 stitches. As I say, then the amount will differ by pattern and motif, but this is what I'm working on. This is working on a 5-10 sequence. Then we've got slip 5 more with the yarn at the back. And then leave a nice long float, not too long. It'll be a nice comfortable length. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there we have it. It's exactly the same as when you're working flat. Make sure that the floats aren't too tight. The yarn is already on the wrong side, so you haven't got to reposition the yarn. And that's how you do it for the right side of your motif or the right side rows when you are working around. I'm going to finish this up to the end of the round, and then I'm going to show you how we do it on what's the equivalent of the return rows when we're working in the round. Okay, so I am now ready to show you how to do the slip stitches on the return rounds on this motif. I just want to reiterate this point that if you've hopefully read the book, you'll be familiar with the concept of return rows and connector rows. Now, the connector rows are not relevant for this particular demo, but the return rows are. The return rows are what we work on the wrong side to take us all the way back to the beginning again. Normally, they are plain. They don't normally have any short rows in them, but they may have slip stitches. But what the return rows do is they kind of close off all the short row clusters normally. So it means that when we're working flat, a return row is a full wrong side row. When we're working in the round, because garter stitch is made up of one round of knits and one round of purls, the return row in the round knitting with the repeatables is a purl round, which means that when we are working our second round of slipped stitches, they're done slightly differently. We are still working with our work, the right side of our work facing us. We're not looking at the wrong side like we were when working flat. So we need to treat these slip stitches, or rather these stitches, ever so slightly differently. So with the yarn at the back, slip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 purlwise. Now, because this is the return row, these stitches that are going to be worked need to be purled. So we now need to bring the yarn forward to the right side of the work so that we can purl these next set of stitches. And then, ready to slip the next one to make sure that our float stays on the wrong side of the work, we then take our yarn to the back, to the wrong side, we slip them all purlwise, carry the float across and bring the yarn back round to the front so that we can then carry on purling these sections of the stripes, these floating stripes kind of thing. So that is the one key difference, is that how you work the return row or the second row of the slip stitches or this going to be different when between working flat and in the round. Where you move the yarn to, the floats always need to be held on the wrong side of the work. Because we're purling on the second row here, it's slightly different to when we're working flat. So I'll just do that one more time. Bring the yarn back around to the front so that we can purl. And then we carry on working that repeat until the end. And that will be the first stripe or first set of floating stripes in this particular motif. I'm not going to work the entire motif, we'll be here all day, but I wanted to show you how that would be done. And then the yarn goes back around the back, ready for the next lot of floats. And then we look at this, and there are two floats there, same as there are all the way down here, and they're all on the wrong side. And that's what they look like on the right side, all broken up there. So let's bring the other one back in. See if I can get that to lay flat. It doesn't want to. It's the same motif, worked on slightly different gauge yarns, one in the round, one worked flat. You can see all the movement within the short row clusters and how it's even clearer in this one, how these clusters here are, well, this is pushing down this way and these ones here are pushing up that way, and they're causing these stripes to travel and change shape and cause like a wave-like effect. It's the short rows in the background that are doing all the work in this particular pattern. But this is how you would work them in the round and flat when you're doing slip stitches in short row colourwork. I hope that's helped to show you how you can work slip stitches in short row colourwork. As I said at the beginning, there's actually other applications for using slip stitches within short row colourwork, and I think that's probably going to be a video in and of itself, because it's something that helps you with designing with the motifs that are in the book, or even designing your own short row colourwork motifs, because using slip stitches helps you create some quite clever effects. But that is, I think, a video in of itself, because I could sit here and talk about it for hours, and then I'll probably melt your brains and melt my brain, and that's not going to help anyone, is it really? Basically, treat the slip stitches as you would in any other environment. Make sure that the floats are on the back, and remember where your yarn needs to be to work the next set of stitches. That's the golden rule, really. There's no real difference, except that you're doing it in a slightly different environment, and you're doing it within colourwork, which is a little bit unusual, except of course mosaic, but that's a whole other thing. But that's it, really. Make sure your floats are on the back and the yarn is in the right place where it needs to be to work your next set of stitches. That's it. Okay, if you've got any more questions about short row colourwork or any other topics that you would like me to cover, do pop a question in the comments. I do teach workshops on this quite regularly. You can sign up to my newsletter to find out how to do that. But want to try and kind of like demystify some of the kind of like concepts for short row colourwork and some of the things that you can do with it, and try and kind of make some sort of shorter videos that will help explain things further and put them in a visual way for you. So yeah, do pop your questions down in the comments and I'll see what I can do. Okay, thanks for watching.